All right, my man. Back from Texas.
We are back. It's March 28th, the year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 671.
Yes, it is. And tonight is the NIT Final Four. My Badgers are in it.
You know how quickly the storyline has changed between the two of us and our basketball seasons in the last week since we spoke last. Yeah, it's all Badgers all the time. My balls pulled
the only Big Ten representative.
Yeah, we pulled a typical fade in the second half, which was, hey, listen, the Sweet 16 is our sweet spot. We can't do much past that. But yeah,
but there's always hope when you get there,
Yeah, it is. But yeah, it's got a little basketball this week. If you have your teams left in the Final Four, because we know you sure as hell didn't pick them to be there, then enjoy yourself and watch the Final Four over this weekend. It should be exciting. But yeah, I got back from the Woodlands, Texas on Sunday night. Really did have just an amazing camp experience with all the athletes. We had, for a March camp early season, you never kind of know what you're going to get, but we did. We had really one of the more special groups we've ever had in terms of energy, attitude, and effort. And it was infectious, just like, negative attitudes are infectious and complaining is infectious. It was awesome. We had athletes from New York and Idaho and, it's cold places, warm places, Minnesota. It was awesome. It was really a great experience. Everyone there did an awesome job. Summer Nicole did a fantastic job helping put on the camp. It's kind of their home turf. We got great weather. And it was nice to be out in the sunshine, 60s, 70s, 80s. It was really, really, really nice to have that. So again, thanks to everybody that came and participated in camp. You did a fantastic job. I want to give a special shout out, even though I'm pretty sure she's never going to listen to this, to Helen Wang. Every camp we have someone that just Googles triathlon camp and just shows up. And I'm always amazed at that individual. And she came to the welcome dinner and I was like, hey, how'd you hear about it? She's like, mid-20s from New York, lives in Manhattan. And she was like, she's like asking me, how many years do you have in the sport? What races are you doing? And I'm like, how'd you hear about this camp? She's like, I just Googled triathlon camp and saw it and decided to sign up. And here I am.
Stepping out of your comfort zone.
I was like, that is way out of my comfort zone. But yeah, it's kudos to anybody that does that and has that kind of courage. Yeah, it was a really, really great camp. Got a lot of great feedback. We'll be doing a little bit of a different camp next year, hopefully by popular demand, and I'll talk about that maybe here in a little bit. But yeah, it was a great camp, great experience. But good to be back home. Good to be back on the podcast and connect with you and connect with the people.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that attitude is contagious. I wrote something about that to my athletes too, about how you go through this life, man, and sometimes you just gotta kind of let go of some negativity and the people that kind of, I don't know, people change and some people evolve and some people don't. And if you're around people that kind of drag you down, it's a tough cut, but sometimes you got to make it happen.
You got to make it happen. And it will always be in your best interest, even though it's hard. It is. It's in your best interest. And we hope today's podcast is in your best interest. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options. The Triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general time is very valuable. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I also talk a lot about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at their very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also frequently utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Amazing community, fantastic people, solid resource in a sport that is oftentimes overcomplicated and can be super confusing. It's a great place, a great community, and a great resource for those of you that have questions to be able to pick the brains of very, very well experienced athletes that have been on the block for 10, 15, 20 years, that have done it all. They've won Ironmans. They're doing their first. They're looking their first sprint. It really is. It's a great melting pot, if you will, of triathlon and endurance sports. So be a part of that community. And if you're already in the community, don't be a lurker. Participate. It's race season, baby. I know you got questions, so ask them and get good feedback. And don't show up to listen. If you're gonna ask a question in a Facebook group, make it ours. Don't participate and ask questions in the the race specific Facebook groups where they're going to tell you you're all behind in your training. If you didn't do a 95-mile bike ride, a 25-mile brick, and did that 4 times, then you're behind schedule. So be a part of ours. You'll get not just great advice, but great support. And we'll go in there at least once a month, do a little bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community, answer as many questions as we can during that podcast. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, speaking of Facebook, man, I mean, I know a lot of people in our group who only have Facebook to be in our group. And you're included. Yeah, me too, kind of. It's like, and then the life is weird, man. I was just back on that topic. I was talking about how sometimes, you just kind of move away from people or whatever, like mentally and physically. But I could be looking at Facebook sometimes and see somebody who I used to hang around with, maybe like 10, 15 years ago. And I thought we were like good friends, and I'll see some of the stuff they're posting. I'm like, I don't even know that. What, it's just weird how things evolve and how people change. And, at the time, the thought of, not hanging out with them was really, tough. And it was, I just want to spend more time together. Now you look back and it's like, you don't even know them. So I guess it's just, I'm getting in the older phase of my life here where I'm starting to see so many people, looking back and just how things change and how things can seem monumental at the time, but it's just moving your own direction a lot of times and finding the good energy around people that are going to encourage your journey. And anyway, that's been on my mind a little bit.
There really is no substitute. And we drive this home a ton on all the podcasts, and it's not going to be a topic for today, but it is. It's I don't think it's ever been more important or even vital to focus on the types of people you surround yourself with, not just, the ones that you can consider, acquaintances, but solid, real, meaningful friendships, right? Where you can connect with people and open up to people and feel safe, but also feel challenged, and I think it's important and to have these and not keep things so, surface and superficial and trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you're afraid to, show cracks and flaws, and that's what life is, is being okay when you can, let those out and talk to people. And again, that's why, this camp was so great is, we have a very strict rule for our team and for camps, and it's, no dicks, no divas, those aren't allowed. That's the one rule we have. And we always seem to find ourselves in that scenario, which is great that we don't have those, but the positive energy is infectious. And I think that's why finding ways to limit the access you have to letting negativity and the craziness of the world into your mind it's never been more important. And so I think, if you got something to focus on in life, and we talk about, limiting stress and focusing on yourself and your health, right? Your overall health, not just how fast you're becoming in triathlon, but just your health, is to sit down, put your phone away, and talk to somebody.
Right.
And that is, it's the cheapest. I mean, I'm of the stance that I think everyone on this planet should go to therapy twice a week or twice a month at least, just to have somebody to talk to and open up to and work through, life's problems and your past traumas or difficulties or whatever it is. But the cheapest therapy in the world is getting outside, doing something for yourself, and having a conversation with a friend. I mean, those alone, you and I talk a lot about, and we'll talk about here in a minute about, you never regret starting a workout. And the same goes, you always feel better at the end. The same goes for, you never regret having a cup of coffee with a friend, sitting at a table with like-minded individuals, right? Doing a group workout with some of your friends, because it's not the fitness, it's the connection. And that's a piece we are all missing. And it's very, very vital. And it goes a long way to overall health.
Yeah. And it's the vibration of people you're around, especially if they're on their, you hear that all the time, like people are on different levels of vibration and some are dragging you down or whatever. But if you're hanging out with somebody having coffee and they're on your same wavelength, that really does pick you up. Or, just being around people, like you said. But yeah, I was thinking about this idea of getting started on a workout. I was I guess it was Friday, I was on the treadmill and I hadn't run in a little while. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get on here and do a sort of a 4-minute run, 1-minute walk rotation. And I didn't have a plan. I was just kind of going through it. And I felt pretty, at the beginning, I was like, I'm a little stiff or whatever. And, it's just sort of that big, I always talk about transitions in life and how do you get on the treadmill or how do you get out and run or whatever it is. And I got on it and I just started doing this thing and I kept about, 25 minutes in, I was like, all right, I'm just going to do one more of those rotations. And that was my whole thing, was one more, just one more. And I thought to myself, wow, that really applies to everything we do. And it's almost like there's magic sometimes at the end of the one more. It's like we talk about second wind sometimes, or what is that? Remember we talked about it with Magnus or something back in the day. And what is a second wind? And then how do you find it? I think that our whole training, cycles and careers are based around second wins or third wins, or is there possible to get fourth wins? What is that? How does it happen? And I don't, the thing is it never happens unless you say, one more, I got one more in me or whatever it is. And I talk about that as, one more rotation on the treadmill or one more mailbox or one more block of run, you kind of just have those conversations with yourself. And you talked about it clearly when we were talking before the cast, but it's really this micro segments that build into the macro and how they all matter. But it's just a very interesting topic to me because I know a lot of athletes I coach will say they were terrible, then they started feeling good, then it went away again, and then it comes back. And like, what is all that? It's the old don't believe how you feel kind of thing. And just kind of consciously, if you can kind of talk yourself into one more or just one more and figure out what that is, because if you can break it out, it's easy in a pool, just one more 50 or one more 100 or whatever. And they just kind of sit there and let it sit in and see how you feel. And then say, can I get one more? Yeah. All right. Because sometimes those things kick off like a whole new you for some weird reason. And I think it's just with everything we got going on in our lives, our minds can kind of play tricks on us and tell us we're tired when we're maybe not or something like that. I don't know if you've ever thought about the third and fourth wins in life, but they're definitely there if you figure out how to kind of get in the ballpark with them.
The definition of micro is, or even some synonyms is one, very small or involving minute or minute quantities or variations. And when we talk about things on a micro level, it's all about beginning and it's not about where you're going to end. And I think that's the disconnect that athletes have is I kind of mentioned this quote at the beginning of the podcast but that I would say 90% of all athletes overestimate what they can accomplish in a month, right? And almost all of them underestimate what they can accomplish over a course of years. And because you and I get that question all the time, hey, you're working with a new athlete, and they've been with you for 3 or 4 weeks. And their question is, hey, what have you seen so far? Do you think I'm on track? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, I understand that you think that 3 weeks is you've done some great work here, but you don't gain a enormous amount of fitness in a few weeks, right? Or even a month. And that's just, we've created this society where, again, where everything is on demand, everything is now. And what happens is we flip, right? The micro becomes the macro. We want it all now. It is the most important thing. It is the biggest thing, not macro is in the future like it should be, building through things, making it the long athlete life cycle, not the 30-day and the expectations that come with it. Because what happens is these small micro decisions that you're making to even start a workout, right? Or to go a little bit longer, right? Or, again, we talked about before, and I've read, I think this comment, every day open up Training Peaks and I'll at least read 10 times. I really didn't want to do this. I didn't think it was going to go very well, but after the warm up, I felt great. This went so much better than I expected.
Yeah.
Right. And for every 10 of those, right, you have a few that's like, I didn't really feel like doing this today, so I didn't. And I get that. We all have those. None of us are perfect, but that one more rep, that, the quote we've used before is like, the hardest part of a run is putting on your shoes, right? It's committing to doing it. And it's like, I remember I had this exact feeling you were talking about, was it two Sundays ago, I drove from Nashville back to Overland Park, Kansas, and then I had a day at home. And then the next day I drove and I ran both days. I didn't run the Sunday, but I ran Monday. Tuesday morning, I got up, I ran, and then drove from Overland Park to Dallas because camp was going to start on Wednesday. I was like, 16 hours of driving in 48 hours. And I woke up Wednesday morning in Dallas. The sun hadn't come up yet. I'm on this like weird ass exit with like no sidewalks, and it was a really nice exit, but it had, it was just no road or one. It was just kind of like, I ran around a mall parking lot with Whole Foods, and my first, quarter mile, half mile, my legs, I felt like I was 95 years old. My knees hurt, my ankles hurt, my toes hurt, my hips hurt, you name it. Mm-hmm. It needed oil. Okay. It needed oil. It needed lube. I was like, man, this feels horrendous. And I told myself, like, usually I'm cruising at like 8:30, 8:40 if I'm doing like really easy. Sometimes I told myself, I said, listen, the win for today is that you've committed to moving. You're on the road. It's 5:30 in the morning. You don't even know the route. You're not going to look it up on Garmin. But the goal today is just to get out the door and at least run for 25 or 30, just to loosen up, just to feel better, right? In the moment, you're sitting there in bed, you're like, yeah, the free breakfast in the morning looks pretty good. It's got pretty good reviews. I could just, hey, I'm traveling. Things are too hard. Easy to layer in all the excuses anybody could give you. Right. Even your buddies, even your trimmers. Yeah, you're on travel, no biggie, just, slough it off. But it's that micro decision of, I'm going to get out the door. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to see what happens. And it took me, I don't know, man, 2.5, 3 miles to even feel relatively normal. But then once I started feeling normal, I was like, I got to 30 minutes and I got close to the front of the hotel. I was like, you know what? Let me go a bit longer. And then did like, 5-6 minute out and back. I got back and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll add in some strides to really open things up. And I just kind of made up the workout as I went along based on how I was feeling, not when I started the workout, but how I felt at the end of the workout, right? I didn't make any macro decisions when I started, because if I did that, I was going for a 10-minute walk and I was done, but yeah. I was like, let me make this micro decision, which is to start my run. And then let me make another one after 5 minutes, and then another one after 5 minutes, and then another one after 10 minutes, and then after another 10 minutes. And then towards the end, it's like, this feels pretty good. And I ended up having like a really great run. My heart rate was low. Pace was pretty solid, for being in Dallas in March. It was like my first run of the year where, you take a shower and then an hour later, you're like, why am I still sweating? But that was like 100% humidity. But it was that example of, I wasn't trying to predetermine how the workout would go, because it would have been negative and I wouldn't have started. Right. And then even after 5 minutes, I was trying not to make a concrete decision that this run is going to go great or go poorly, or I'm going to be done. It was just, let me just see what happens. And I think that terrifies people. and you and I both work with a very wide range of athletes with different personality types. And again, going back to, people have taken that macro level the long-term view and really shrunk it down to 30 days or 60 days, or, I've got to be better in 2 weeks, or I've got to be ready for this. And it puts so much pressure that most people will just choose not to participate in it. Yeah. They won't choose to do one more because they see it as a no win. But the win is in the longevity, the putting it together, not just from a fitness standpoint, but every time you make one of these small positive decisions, you're reinforcing that piece of you, right? Just like streaks and momentum in training, right? The more you run, the better you feel. The more the more you ride, the better you ride. Same with swimming, keeping feel for the water. It's all very similar, and it's just like decision making. One right decision leads to another right decision. You never hear the phrase, hey, you always hear, you're making a lot of great decisions, or you're really making a lot of poor choices. It's never, you know what, you're really making some great choices, and then you're following those by some really shitty choices. It's always a streak, right? It's always comes and goes in a flow. And so each time you make that small decision, the next time you kind of come to a crossroads, you're more likely to make the decision you made the previous time. And that can either be a positive one or a negative one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's like the baseball, and it's like playing small ball all the time. And it's just so much more manageable, and they add up to big innings. But, it's so different. Like we'll go into a workout and we'll stand in the batter's box and with a big workout and just think about hitting a home run right away rather than just warming up and getting into it. And I love how you described that run, because that is so, I think everyone does that or feels that all the time. And it doesn't matter really what workout it is. If you're looking at it, and thinking you're just going to nail it, or you have to nail it, I should say, versus, I don't know if, sometimes you can look at a workout and go, I don't know if I'm going to nail this. You kind of almost have to really take it as you go and craft it as you go. And like what you did is that, you kind of was just loosening up, getting out there, and then suddenly at the end, you're going to throw in some strides. And it's like, okay, that means you got there. But if you were to think about that in the first mile, you'd have been thinking, no way. So I just feel like it's that Cody Beals thing again, where you kind of have to wake up. You have to assess every little moment, as you're getting ready and as you're starting and as you're going through it. And I was, I just over and over, I hear it all the time. It's like, there may be, whatever it is, an hour and 45-minute run or whatever. And somebody's like, well, I didn't think I had it in me. I got out. I felt really good. And then I got to about 1:15 and I started to really struggle. And sometimes people will go through that a while and then sort of wind it down. But others will really, suck it up, dig deep when it's not really necessary, and go an extra 15, 20 minutes and just be shelled. So I really want it to be clear that these workouts are, we always talk about how we're not there. We're not you. We don't know how to, how you feel today, what you went through yesterday or last night or whatever the case may be. And it's so important to just, especially if a lot's going on in your life. And I think you wake up on a Saturday and you're like, man, I got a big weekend here. I got to really play this smart and take it at that micro level and really kind of just feel your way through it. If a warm-up says 10 minutes and then you're supposed to just jump on it right away and you're not feeling, and that crashes the whole warm-up or the whole workout, then to me, that's a bad plan. I think you need to extend the warm-up, and that's kind of what I was doing the other day. I was thinking in my head on that treadmill, I'm going to just go easy for a while, and then I'll just pick it up. And I did, but I literally was picking it up like 0.1 miles an hour on the next one, and then I did it again. And then I would go through a rotation. It was just there's something very rewarding almost about manageable increases. And by the end of that run, I was like, wow, I could have probably gone like forever, but I had to make that decision too. It's like, why do that right now? What are you going to prove to yourself besides, taking yourself out of a potential groove right now? And I think that we try to hit home runs when we don't need to. And like you're saying, the 3-week improvements, you can't change the world in 3 weeks, but you can kind of change it in a year if you if you just stick to the right plans and do the right things in the moment. So I think that's really good, man. I think, we can almost translate this right into a race too, the whole concept of not, you stand at the water in the morning before an Ironman or something. And if you're thinking about 140 miles, that can be daunting. It's like you really need to be right where you're at and just kind of take it as it comes, So I like the thought of, segmenting or breaking out different ways to get through your race too.
You said something there that when you're talking about the incremental speed, right? Or working your way through things and being in control. What happens is, and we've talked about this a ton, but it's I don't think we can talk about it enough, is when you're starting to learn yourself, right? A lot of athletes have come into the sport in the last few years, and you've entered the sport where, you think data is everything. Everything is useful, and you don't necessarily have. And I work with athletes, right? They'll readily say, I don't have a very good feel, right, for myself, right, for what's hard and what's not. Or they question after every workout, was this too hard? Was this hard enough? And one of the best ways to do that is via control, not by too much control, but allowing you to feel incrementally, small percentage point by small percentage point, what does 150 watts feel like? What does 155 feel like?
Right.
What does 60 feel like? Right. And doing it not for a second, right, for a few minutes. Because what happens is athletes that start off races too quick or start off workouts too quick. And you hear all this talk about, you got big races this weekend, Texas 70.3, Oceanside 70.3. It's the beginning of the year, everybody's pumped. And you talk about, doing race prep and, race simulations. I'm like, every training session should be a race simulation. Every one of it. Because it should be about control. It should be about effort. It should be about execution. It should be about listening to your body. If you're reckless in training, you're reckless on race day. Period. End of story. And so what controlling yourself doing, taking that minute by minute by minute, it teaches you not just control, right? Because you don't want to be too controlled, but what it does is it allows your body and your mind, if there is this huge disconnect, to give it time to calibrate. Okay, this is what this feels like. And while I think this feels good for a minute, and I can do this, maybe a minute or two later, your legs are burning. But if you had but what happens is you've incrementally increased so slowly that you have plenty of time to gather yourself or to work yourself backwards and to continue on and to correct your mistake, right? You go off course, you course correct. And when you go way, way, way too hard, way, way, way too early, and you do it for too long, and the warning signs and the bells and the whistles and the sirens are going off and you're ignoring them, well, after a few minutes, you reach that point of no return. And so in controlling your intensity, and like example, like if I give an athlete, 5 by 2 minutes, 10 by 1 minute, 4 by 8 minutes, I tell them give them a wide range. Let's say they're doing it on, doing watts, and then say your range is 200 to 240. I always tell them, make your first one the easiest. Aim for 200. Then aim maybe to 220, then maybe to 230, then maybe aim to 240. Your last one needs to be your strongest. And then, well, I want to smash them all. Well, what usually happens is you smash the first one, you smash the second one, your third one is way low because you got to take time to gather yourself. Then you try to rally and absolutely dredge your way through the fourth interval, right? And then if you look at like the average power and normalize between the four and the rest, it's the same as if they had just progressively gotten faster. But the feeling of control, the feeling of finishing stronger, tops it all off.
Oh yeah,
which is how you want an athlete to feel during a race, right? So we are a huge fan of negative split long runs. Right? Most athletes are used to the fade. They're used to the bonk. They're used to the, last 10 or 15 minute walk around. Like they're used to, like I was, our operations manager Summer was like, yeah, one of my neighborhood friends is going to come volunteer with us at Ironman Texas. And I told her, you're going to get the bug. You're going to get the bug. And I said, well, listen, if you don't go to the start and you don't go to the finish and all you do is spectate mile 20 of the run, she ain't never signing up.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to sign up because all you're seeing is the misery, right? The people who went out way too hard, who got overheated, who didn't control themselves, or they're barely making it through aid stations, right? I was like, because they don't know how to control, they don't know how to execute, they don't know how to regulate their own effort. And so when you give these opportunities, right, to finish faster, to finish stronger, it's not about too much control. It's about empowering you to see the difference, not just in the stimulus you get with more power at the end after multiple reps, but the confidence it gives you, right? Because an athlete that goes into a race reckless, they're either going to get first or last. Period. That's it. They're either going to go reckless and everything's going to fall in their favor and the cards are going to lay down perfectly for them on that day, or they're going to make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake and end up trashing themselves and walk their way to the finish. Versus being calculated, right? Not overly calculated to where you're paralyzed, but you've done so much work in training. You've listened to yourself. You've gone hard when you felt great. You've pulled it back when you haven't. You got out the door when you didn't want to, and you finished strong in others. That's race simulation. Because, like you've said a million times on the podcast, like you're gonna have a different feeling every mile. Mm-hmm. Everything's gonna be different. Everything. Might be frowning a mile, smiling a mile, yelling a mile, whatever it is, it's all going to be different. And if you don't know how to regulate that, you don't know how to manage that, you don't know how to control your emotions, control your effort, control your execution, then you don't have a plan. It doesn't matter what you think you've done in training. If it's always been reckless and you haven't tried to manage things in a positive way and instill that confidence of finishing faster, finishing stronger, to me, that's the best. Looking back on all the sessions I've ever done, that I've kind of left before a race thinking, man, that was good. I feel good. It all had to do with finishing faster or stronger than when I started. Not the first interval, but the last interval.
Yeah. Well, one of the first things I learned in this sport was the negative split concept. And I never I never was in endurance sports, so I never really understood it, but it's everything. And when you were talking about that idea of being in ranges and 150 watts and then feeling like, well, what's 154 or 155 feel like, and really that's one of my favorite things to think about. And I'm something about this podcast, sometimes things come out and help me understand and really get a clearer picture of what I'm trying to say, and I feel it in my gut or whatever. But like the idea of really owning where you're at, and just kind of like, throughout the whole workout, even, it's just like, all right, I'm good here. I'm good here. I could take this forever. And I talk about all day pace, and all day pace doesn't mean going out and hitting all day pace. It means getting into it, taking time, getting there and settling in and knowing what it feels like. And when you can really get that deep feeling in your body that you have control of what's going on right now, that is so huge. And then you can kind of like incrementally ease it up. And I always tell is like this concept of at the end of a race, the last, like say it's a half Ironman and you're talking about, the last 3 miles, empty the tank. I'm always very clear to like point out that doesn't mean like at right then, you know what I mean? It means it's like you've got some left, what you have, ease it up, just let that, it's the same concept, but you don't have as far to go. So now you got to try and time it so that you end with your tank empty. It doesn't mean, at mile 10, just put it to the metal. It's just it's a slow controlled build. And to understand how to do that is so huge, I think. And I was kind of trying to think back to, I think the best race I ever ran was that one in Chattanooga, the 70.3, about 4 years ago. And that was the one where I had that control and I knew it. And then I saw you at the end and you're like, you put it down. And I had, a half mile or down. It was all downhill, but still, that pounding.
That's excruciating.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
But I had it, and I literally I kind of just kicked it in right there. And I knew I had it, even though it was really painful at the moment. But that's the way to do it. I guess my point is I think I've had a 70.3 in the past that was about the same time over at Muncie. But thinking back on that, it was a lot more mental for me because, we've all gone out too hard and held on, right? And that can work too, but I had more, I don't know if I want to, maybe more fear in me back then. I wanted to prove something to people, or it was new and it was fresh. And I had mental capacity to get through it a lot better back then. And even if I didn't run a smart race, it was just sort of this, how deep can you dig? But the longer I'm in the sport, it doesn't have the same, shiny glitziness about it sometimes. And it's like, I'm getting older. I don't want to do this anymore. I might be able to, but I don't want to just completely shell myself in the wrong fashion. I think there's a way to kind of, you can tell when you're doing workouts if it's just going to absolutely leave you on the ground looking up at the sky going, what am I doing? Or you're just left it all out there, but you feel great about it. There's two different feelings, or there's probably more than that, but you know what I'm saying? How sometimes you can really be set back, and other times you handled it right, and it feels good to really burn through it. It's almost more like sometimes when I get off of rides, man, or like long rides when we used to do the trace rides, I would actually be just shelled. But other times, if I kept my pacing right and finished strong, because I don't know what's going on with the body with that, but sometimes it's hard to believe if you're fairly new to the sport that you can actually finish stronger at an Ironman. I always used to laugh at people, not laugh, but be like, what? We're running a half marathon. Because when I was just getting into running, we run a half marathon or something, and people be out there running before the race. I'm like, dude, save your energy, But it's all about being ready and getting your body and your blood flow in a place where you can control it. And I think that's what happens at the beginning of a race a lot of times, is that we go from 0 to, 85 or 90, and your body's like, what the hell's going on here? We're not even warmed up yet. And now it's like all struggling. And I think that's where the bonk and all that, you start reaching for sugars and all kinds of crazy shit starts happening in your body. So it is, man. It's all about having that control, and it's all about being able to manage that control and incrementally micro level gains throughout the day.
The best place, because again, it's race season, we're racing, we're excited, and if we're not racing yet, your intervals are getting harder, maybe, or longer, or there's more of them. And if you think about, how do I make these decisions? How can I do better? How can I execute my training better? How can I execute in racing better? I see what you're saying, but that's hard for me because I don't have a good feel for my body or whatever it is, or I don't understand, what equates this, which is a real disconnect for some people. And I get that. I'm sympathetic to that. But to a point, there's also a way to learn that, right? If you give yourself the time and the energy. And again, it's very, very, very hard these days because everything that's marketed, everything that's pushed, hashtag beat yesterday, got to do it now. Bucket list. I want to do this in 30 days, even though I'm not trained for it and I've missed a few sessions. Like, it's all now, and we say sometimes it's all about the long term. The longer you're in the sport, the better chance you have of being your best, period. End of story. When it comes down to the micro level of making decisions each and every day, each and every session, each and every interval, always ask yourself, when you're making these micro decisions, that you have the opportunity to move up, right? To move up in watts, move up in pace, move up in effort. And if I do that, I know I can at least stay there. What you don't want to happen is to make a decision to move up, right? And then have to make 2 steps back. You always want your bailout not to be regression or slowing, but instead maintaining, right? So if you work your way up slowly, like some of my most favorite runs are, especially when the weather's changing like it is right now, right? And then or when this, being in Texas, and I'm like going from Tuesday morning I ran in tights and a jacket and a hoodie and gloves, and it was like 25 degrees, and the next day it's like 85, humidity 100%. And I told myself, and I do this again, like on some of my long runs, I'm running for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, I'll turn my watch over and I will have pace, and that's it, lap pace listed. And that's all I'll look at. And I'll start running off, and I'll tell myself, all right, I'm probably going to run for 10 miles today. And I want each mile, regardless of terrain, right? No excuses. No, you had an uphill, right? No, there was a downhill. So no excuses. Each mile I'm going to be faster. So what I have to do is I have to make a decision the first mile, what gives me the best opportunity as a buffer to creep forward 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds a mile, right? To where I know 100% without a doubt, based on how my legs feel, right? Because you're giving yourself the opportunity the first mile or two to understand, am I dropping these miles like 20 seconds faster? Or am I dropping them 3 seconds faster, right? Huge difference from where you end up, right? We're talking about minutes difference. But it gives you an opportunity to be successful, to learn about yourself and to execute and to see what it's like to finish fast, right? And if you feel great the last mile, then don't drop at 10 seconds, drop at 40. But the win and the way you know you've done it right is if I get to mile 8, right, and I'm doing 8:30s, but I think I've hit my wall, my next split isn't going to be 9. It's going to still be 8:40s. It's going to be where I can still maintain what I'm doing. I'm not dropping the pace, and that's what it's like to make those small micro decisions. You know, another example, if you're on your bike, like I did this while you were chatting. It's like if you get 10 2-minute intervals. A lot of people like to shove their bike and their trainer into ERG mode, and let's say I'm like, all right, Mike, do 10 2-minute intervals at threshold. And I'll give you their range, and your range, comes to, like 200 to 290. Okay. Well, ERG mode's going to have you at 255 in the middle. You're going to do all 10 at 255, period. It takes the middle metric, the middle number. Well, what if you don't have 55 when you start? That first interval, right? Your legs are sore. You're in heavy training. Most athletes always say that the more fatigue, the longer the warm up. Right, the longer it takes your body to get going. Like, I'll never forget, we've told this before, like you and I headed out on this ride in the Trace, and I legit thought you were going to go nuts on me. Like, you were pissed, you were grumpy, you were like standing out of your saddle, you were like trying to shove your legs to wake up. Like, I looked back a few times at cars, you were like, I'm fine, stop checking on me. Like, you were so pissed off that day, right? And then like 20 miles later, your legs had opened up, right? Your legs got warm, and we crushed like what, 2.5 hours of Arrow Hills on the Trace. Like, totally different feeling. Your fitness didn't change, right? You just gave your body the adequate time it needed to warm up, right? But if you start the interval and you, instead of doing, you do 255, you're not warm yet, but you're like, God, this feels terrible, right? So your first interval is a negative. It's not instilling confidence, and you already feel like you're in defensive. And the next thought is, God, I hope I can make this next interval. I hope I can make it through. Or your decision is made. Well, today's not my day, right? And you bail. Versus, which is that scenario is the common scenario. Versus, all right, Mike, here's your range. 200 to 290, you got 10 intervals, just work your way up through, and make the last one, the best you got. Well, if every interval you work up just 10 watts, you start at 200, you're going to end the last one at 290, around 290, 295. If you even just go up 5 to 10 watts, if you go up 10 watts per interval. So instead of your last one being 255, if you manage to hang, your last one's 290. And then you can go back and average out like the normalized power and the stress and energy and the kilojoules, and it's going to be the same, if not greater, having negative split it, and the adaptation is better. But most importantly, you gave yourself time to warm up, you gave yourself time to work into it, and you finished 35, 40 watts higher, in control. Listen, there's no better feeling in a workout than knowing when you're about to end your recovery and you're about to start that last 50 in the pool, or that last 2-minute interval on trainer, or that last quarter, half mile, 10 minutes, in your run, that you've gotten yourself to a place to where, like, I'm gonna fucking own this. Like, know it, 100% you're about to throw it down. It's not that you're not tired, it's that you've kept that last gear in your back pocket, right, to pull out at the exact time. And you do it, and you bust out and you rip a 290. There's literally nothing better. Yes, you got a great fitness bump. Yes, you executed your workout. But from a confidence standpoint, That is the feeling, kind of going back to what you said about emptying the tank. You don't want to empty it immediately, right? You want to progressively, you want a small tear or crack in the gas tank. You don't want to just, open up and have it all flow out in 5 seconds. That's what it feels like. That is race simulation. That is how it should feel like. Not perfecting distances and doing this. It's about that effort and execution. And there is no better feeling in training. It's to nail that last rep. No one ever talks about, so, I nailed that last rep, so I know my fitness jumped. It was great. I'm going to crush those next 2 weeks. Everything is, man, it felt so good to nail that last rep versus, the times that people go out way too hard, too high, too early. Man, that ride was so frustrating. Like, I got down on myself and I tried to ride, but I couldn't. We have that choice, right? But it's again, micro decisions every minute, every rep. How am I doing? Is this right? And again, it all goes back to, if I have to stop progressing now, I'm going to maintain this effort, this speed, this power, this pace. I'm not going to have to regress. So ask yourself those questions. Don't just, willy-nilly go out and bury yourself in the first 2 minutes and wonder why you can't finish a workout.
Mm. Well, first of all, I hope I apologize for that day. I'm pretty sure I did. I bet we forget giving you shit. Quit looking back.
You did apologize to me, but I think it was as you grinded your way past me going up that climb in the pace. You're like, "How you doing, man?" I'm like, "Fuck off."
Now you're getting, yeah, right. See how totally shit changes.
This back.
It's like when I sleep in, and then by the end of the night, I'm ready to go, and you're pissed off at me. Anyway, so yeah, and then I'm glad you brought that up about ERG, because to me, if I'm doing those 10. And the range is 200 to 290. I want to finish stronger. I want to push at the end. And I mean, really, that's what training should be about, is kind of feeling that, like you're saying, keeping that last gear in your back pocket kind of thing, and then really just getting it. Because you don't want to just be crashed every time you get done with a workout. You want to feel that strong ending. You want to feel that confidence. You want to push it out there a little bit. I mean, to end at 290 versus always being at 250, I want to push that a little bit. And there's no better time to be able to push it than at the end. That's when you're like, okay, now you're understanding the control factor and really figuring out how to do it. I mean, how many people in races can actually finish that bike strong? That's training right there. That's thinking about it. I used to run on the Greenway in Nashville, and I loved it because it was, first of all, these are my flat runs usually or whatever, but it was the 4 miles, and they had mile markers, and I used to run with my chrono all the time. And my biggest thing was I would go out maybe on a hour and a half run or something, and I got such a joy out of resetting the lap button at the mile marker and then trying to make the next mile the same without thinking about, or no pace, no nothing, and just by feel. And I was really pretty good at getting it within a few seconds. And I knew it. Like, I could tell if it was a little bit faster. And I also knew that there was one of them that was just a little bit of a longer segment. And, I just had it down to like a second or 5 seconds here and there and everything. And then by the end, I would always try to, like you said, I mean, like, pick up maybe the second to last one and then really just kind of let go on the last one and feel good at the end. It was such a great feeling. I had a really good command of what I thought my solid pace was, long run pace, and that's where I would go, and I would just toy with that and play around. I always think about form and releasing and feeling free and floating and feeling lighter and all that kind of stuff, and I would toy around with little things like that during the run. But man, it was so incredibly rewarding to look down and just know, just by feel, that I was within a few seconds or a couple seconds, or sometimes I'd hit it right on the nose, the same exact time between mile markers. And that's stuff that I think it just, to me, that's what training really feels like it should be about, is just being able to own what you got and knowing that, sometimes, like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to make this one maybe 5 seconds faster, and being able to just do that. Think about how powerful that is, to be able to be in your mind and in your body so strongly that you have that sort of control and understand what it feels like. I think those are the, you can break out workouts however you want, but like understanding that stuff really is that goes the longest way in racing to me too, because you start crystallizing that understanding. And then, they always say practice harder than you race or whatever, play. Being able to make those decisions in the race like that that you're at whatever it is, like, you're at 70% of your effort. Being able to know that after you ride 112 miles or whatever on the run, wow. Because it changes, it'll probably be different. That's the other thing, is understanding effort no matter how you feel, those kind of things. I don't think you can put a price on that, man. So that's why I'm just like, sometimes I really miss my chrono for that reason. Because it really didn't, it forced me to kind of get inside myself a lot more and understand that. And I think we can get trapped by, like anytime, and I usually run with a Garmin now, and I'm always looking at it and the pace. Even though I know it's not accurate, it still jacks with me, And it's a very different feeling to be thinking like that, and then, oh, you're like, shit, this is a way off. And then by the end, it's like, oh, that was faster than I thought it was going to be, or slower than, it doesn't really give you that true understanding, I think, sometimes.
You should, and this goes for racing and in training, whether it's a sprint, whether it's a full, whether it's a marathon, whether it's a half marathon, whether it's an easy aerobic ride, or a threshold run. You've got to ask yourself, am I going to be ready and in a position to be in control of emptying my tank towards the end of this, right? If needed. Right? On an easy ride, there should be no emptying of the tank. Races, interval sessions, negative splits. Am I ready, prepared, and in control to empty my tank, right? Instead of, which most people find themselves in, especially on race day and especially on long rides intervals, you're not asking yourself, when is the time to empty the tank? Instead, what you're doing is looking for a gas station. Because you're done. You got nothing in the tank. You dropped it too early, right? You're losing. You spent your load. You burnt your biscuits. However you want to. You ran out of gas in your tank. However you want to phrase it. You did that, right? Because you spent your energy too soon, and now you're done. Right. Because your energy has to come from somewhere. You don't create energy out of nowhere. Right. It's like energy is all about conversion. Right. What you have going on inside of your body is converted to energy and speed or velocity. You don't get to just create it. And guess what? Walking doesn't give you more. It's just treading water to the finish line. Right. Same thing with bonking on your bike. So you have to think about these things and how to pace that. And again, just to drive this home even more, because I know you guys love it. Emptying the tank on the run still matters when you get your first foot in the water in the swim, because what you have left in the tank the last 6 miles in the run is all relative and goes back to how much energy you started and how much you used in the swim. You can say the swim doesn't matter. You can say it's the shortest of events, right? But if instead of, I like to think of the swim as this, and we can close it out here, is when you look at the swim portion of the event, we all go to the gas station, we all fill up our car with gas. You fill up your tank, right? And you always notice that little extra, half centimeter or a little bit to the right of the full dial that your dial goes to, right? It's like, it makes it look like your tank is over full, right? You fill up and it's like, it's past the F all the way to the right. And you're like, man, that's weird, but okay, I'll take it. Your dial at the end of the swim should go to F. That's it. It should go to F. You should still have a full tank. Most people, it goes down to like 3/4 after the swim. You're toast. You had to use all your energy because you didn't swim enough, you didn't swim hard enough, you didn't swim long enough, right? And you've already wasted a quarter of a tank. It should come back to full tank, right? Because if you don't, then you're going to get to the end of the run, the half marathon portion, and be on E. Here comes the light. Fuck. Here we go. These aid stations, and the bad thing about it is you can't refill. You can coast, right, which is the walk. You can top off a little bit. Every aid station isn't a gas station. It's not time to fill up. You can't fill up. You're done. It's kind of like, getting behind an 18-wheeler and drafting for a little bit in your RAV4. You're getting you can get a couple free, extra miles per hour, or miles per gallon, but not much. And so think about that again in your training and your pacing. And if you didn't swim, enough, don't swim like you did. If you didn't swim enough and you didn't bike enough, don't act like you did. Save it, because I'm telling you this right now. Because when I'm in shape, I live it and breathe it, because I am not, the greatest athlete. But when I'm in shape, I will 100%. I will be able to outsmart people that are out fitter than you, and that's all you have to do in races. Because most people will ruin themselves in a race, and all you have to do is work your own plan. And you'll beat people that you shouldn't have beat, because you worked your plan, you worked your own fitness instead of overdoing it. So be smart, use every interval. And if you have a best friend and a cranky training partner, give them 20 minutes.
Yeah, I need that 20, man. I always need that 20. I don't know what it is. But
listen,
it's that
kind of
thick
like
blood, man.
It's kind of like talk to me before coffee. We all have those.
Yeah. That's true, man. It's that thick Wisconsin blood that takes a little time to thaw out.
Nothing wrong with that, man.
No, that's what, that's why you're hardy and you finish strong. That's why I think I've always gravitated to that. But anyway, yeah, some good stuff there, maybe.
Yeah. And hopefully we finish stronger than we started. And if you don't like NIT basketball talk, then we definitely finish stronger than we started.
We usually do.
As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We will be doing a camp next year again in the Woodlands, Texas. It will be our first C26 swim school, a swim-focused camp. We will have group runs, but it will be 4 to 5 pool sessions, an open water swim, 3 coaches. That link will be live soon for listeners. But if you want more information on it, email summer@c26operations@gmail.com for more info on when that goes live. But in the meantime, if you need anything from Mike, he's available, crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. Welcome back, and let's get after it.
Go Badgers.
Go Badgers.
All right, see you, dude.
All right, see you.